Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Star Report. This is Jason. I'm here back at New Dimensions Crystals and Reiki in downtown Brenham, Texas, at the Rock and Crystal Shop and also Metaphysical Shop, where I do energy and other kinds of healings, including breathwork. It is the week of July 12th through the 18th, which we are doing the Star Report on this week. And let's jump right in to the sun. The sun had 3 solar flares yesterday, so flaring is obviously up. We're moving towards the August 5 month, 5.5 month cycle of upticks in solar flaring activity, right? And so we're continually going up that way. And so 3 solar flares were in the M class. Did I say that? We're in the M class range, so I won't call them minor, but middle of the road solar flares. None of those produced a CME. There was a CME that came off of a other sunspot, which didn't flare, which is weird. And so that coronal mass ejection, which is what a CME is coming towards us and should be hitting the planet a Friday sometime. And so the solar flares are really upticks in mental confusion, any kind of triggering of mental syndromes that you might have, bipolar disorder, depression, right, might be triggered or increased during this time. Also, the flaring causes heart palpitations, right? So if you have any kind of cardiac stuff, you might feel what feels like an anxiety sort of building, right? That is the energy of which your body is enacting, not necessarily your body having dysfunction, although pay attention to that and mind your own health that way. The CME, when that hits, that causes usually technological disruption. Sometimes the solar flares do the same thing, right? So satellites, which control GPS, which control sometimes internet access or cellular access. So look for sometimes slowing of your download speeds or disruption in your cable provider if people are still using satellite dishes. Those are the kinds of energies that the sun's going to be doing. Uh, Also, since we started these upticks of flaring, probably the flaring is going to continue to uptick moving into August. So just sort of if you're watching solar weather channels, pay attention and sort of gauge that. I like to usually check it in the morning just to sort of see what's going to be happening for the day. So go ahead and do that. There's plenty of solar channels that have just live feeds of the satellites that are pointing at it with, the emerald spirals of, where the ejections are going, if any of them happen. So you can watch those. I think NASA's even got a live feed you can check. Which leads us into today, Wednesday, the 12th. We are continued today to be influenced by the 7-7 gateway that happened last week. I mentioned it briefly. The 7-7 gateway is really sort of not 7-7 is it, but there's a monthly sort of gateway based on the month, right? So the 7th day of the 7th month, the 8th day of the 8th month next month in August is going to be the Lion's Gate. The 7-7, 7 is the number of magic and creation. And so 7-7 is really this gateway to new magical shifts that are sort of going on in our life. And so we're still being influenced by that energy. Probably until the Lion's Gate, right? It's almost like a ramping up this year. Usually it's an episodic thing, which sort of feels like it goes for a week, maybe two. But it continues to influence us today. And also today, Mars, Mars and Venus were sort of in conjunction a couple of weeks ago. And so the Mars is influencing us today. So Mars is the planet of action and usually associated with masculine, active, doing kind of energy. And so as Mars is influencing today, it's asking us to sort of take action on our life path rather than waiting, right? So if you are in this sort of holding pattern that you have other options you want to explore, or that things aren't moving along as fast as you like because you haven't been able to choose or make up your mind, really this energy of Mars is saying that choosing is going to get you the results that you're looking for rather than waiting. And so today, just think about what choices can you make? What choices are you just on the edge about making or waiting for somebody else's input to make? Just sort of head and make those choices yourself today. And the thing to pay attention to when we're in the 7-7 gateway energy is really that results come quick, right? And so once you start to act, you're going to start to see the benefits and the fruits of that. But also, the things that come quick during this energy is karma, right? So watch out for being triggered to anger. Watch out for just sort of cyclical stuff coming up in karma returning quicker than you would think it would be. Um, just a cautionary tale. And that's Wednesday, moving us into Thursday, the 13th, which is going to be more influenced by Venus. And so Venus on Thursday is really going to give you some heart energy, right? So along with this solar flaring, giving you that sort of anxiety stuff, you're going to start to feel a fullness or maybe even expansion, right? And so sometimes that feels like pressure in the chest, right? When the heart energy is expanding outwards and it's sort of contained in the chest area, you might sort of feel like there's a constriction in there, but it's really your heart opening or turning its energy up, right? And so this Venus energy on Thursday is really going to give you the idea or the energy that your heart is going to, with these choices you're making, your choices should be about your true desires, your true self, and not about people pleasing and not about satiating something outside of yourself, but really answering the call to what is your soul telling you to do? Is your soul telling you to move? Is your soul telling you to do a lateral move? Maybe you're going to shift from one agency to another. Maybe if you're a real estate agent, or if you're in oil and gas, you're going to go work for a different, or if you're in finance, you're going to go work for a different bank. Right? It doesn't have to be completely different. Maybe it's just a sort of a different shift for you're looking for an environment that's more you, right? And that doesn't mean that it's an entirely new job, but maybe the people around you or the office that you go to is going to be different. So that's the kind of energy. So you really need to, on Thursday, to sort of be paying attention. If you're looking to make those moves, do a heart-inspired move, not a people-pleasing, satiating move to quiet your critics or help somebody that doesn't have any kind of input on your life, right? Just do this for you, which leads us into Friday through Sunday. Friday through Sunday is pretty much a waiting period, right? Because some big old stuff is happening on Monday, right? So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sort of pay attention to the choices that you've made, sort of listen to your heart and sort of evaluate the things that you're thinking about here on Wednesday and Thursday. And then Monday is the big day this week. Monday the 17th, we have a whole bunch of things happening. I'm going to list those off, and I'm going to talk about the energy that you might feel, things you might think about or want to do during this, and then sort of big picture stuff like what's the planetary stuff that's going to be going on with that kind of thing. And so Monday the 17th is the new moon in Cancer. Big deal. Also a 22 master day. And the north node in the south node, which is the moon, right? So the north node is the rising, and then I believe the south node is the bottom horizon. And so the north node's moving into Aries, so the south node is moving into Libra, while also at the same time, this new moon in Cancer, the sun is also still in Cancer. That's the zodiac sign Cancer. And so Cancer is associated with the nurturing nature of the planet. And so also the energy that's still prominent is the 7-7 energy. And then also we are under Pluto retrograde, which is understanding our hidden self, clearing emotional wounds. Saturn retrograde, which is about choosing an authentic career and having mystical synchronicities sort of arise, right? So we're building a mystical framework for life with this Saturn retrograde. And then we're also under Neptune retrograde. And so Neptune is about discovering our spiritual powers, right? So this newness that we are becoming is something that we weren't trained to be, and that we weren't usually in an environment which was talking about the spiritual nature of the self. So this might feel like an entirely new thing that's going on. And then of course, let's just get into like, what's all this doing to us, right? So new moon on Monday. New moons are about new beginnings, right? It's new moon is the dark part of the moon, right? So the moon should be invisible in the sky. So you should have a darker night, so you're gonna be able to see the stars even better, right? So you sort of see the expanse of the universe better when the moon is new. And so that new seeing is happening under a 22 master day, right? And that's just the energy of you are empowered to make choices, right? So this is empowering the individual, but also empowering a society to choose something different, right? So when you have the mastery number, you can actually shift the direction of not just the self, but the group and the culture that we live in or that we exist in. And then North Node. North Node is usually about a couple of things. Usually it's about this current metaphysics or this current life that we're living. And usually South Node is a past life or our past lives, right? If we believe that we've been reincarnated, I do. And so the North Node is really about what is currently happening and what are we constructing currently. And so that North Node is moving into Aries, right? And we know alchemically Aries is about the higher mind, the golden fleece. Sometimes people associate it with pineal gland, but it's really this metaphysical understanding that there is a access to information that is beyond the physical reality and also beyond data that happens through computers, AI, conversation, study, books, right? That there is a knowledge that's just available out there, and that there is beings and or people that have that data that this gives you access to, right? And so the North Node is moving into Aries, but that North Node is also about new beginnings. It is also about the master of the energy of Aries, right? So with the master day and the mastery of the North Node and the mastery of Aries, right? This is really when we start to decide, maybe we don't, but the energy is such that you can decide that you are a spiritual being having a physical experience. I know many people have heard that phrase, that we are a spirit or a soul having a physical experience, that you become to associate yourself during times like this with more of a spiritual being rather than a physical being. And then what would you rather, how would you like to exist in this physical body as that spiritual being is also some decisions that can come with that North Node shifting into Aries. And it's shifting from Taurus, right? So Taurus, really physical, and now we're moving very spiritual. And that's going to be until January of 2025. The South Node into Libra. South Node is about balance and justice and integration of the old. So sometimes Libra gives us changes in relationships. This is also the energy which sometimes holds us into people's approval or codependence, because we want to keep things in balance. We don't want to upset or rock the boat. That kind of energy is the negative part of Libra, right? And this is in the South Node. And so the South Node is about being able to leave those kinds of things behind. Or if we're looking at it as the South Node as past life stuff, this is really about bringing up lessons from all of our lifetimes and all of our powers from those lifetimes, right? So that we can leave imbalance or leave unhealthy balance or codependent balance into something that's more beneficial, something that's more freeing, right? And so that's also going to be in that South Node is also going to be lasting till January of 25, right? So this is a shift of what's our focus over the next year-ish and a half kind of stuff. So sort of pay attention to that when you sort of look at that as a greater thing, right? Rather than the common denominator of what is the base of everything that's happening in the world, what is the highest good? Is it if we're looking at something terrible happening on the television, what is the higher learning or what is the higher possibility, right? Maybe it's just unification of people's understanding that their world is not what we think it is, right? And so that's the positive out of all the negative that's coming, that people are awake to the world isn't as stable as they thought it was when they were younger, right? And so looking for the positive in that, right? In the higher mind stuff, right? And then the South Node, right? What in society are we going to let go of that we are codependent on, right? Are we too dependent on banks? Are we too dependent on fossil fuels? Are we too dependent on government? Are we too dependent on fill in the blank, right? All of these things are having the ability to be examined and maybe shifted, right? And so that's going to be happening societally too, right? So as especially in the West, here in the United States, especially as the economy continues to trend downward and all these things seem to be in decline, right? Maybe there's some things that we need to leave behind, and we should look for the Aries version. What's the positive thing that's happening here, and how can we create that positive thing and focus on that rather than anchoring ourselves to things that are breaking and going down with the ship, right? We are meant to rise and raise our vibration and become closer together and more than what we thought we could be, rather than being anchored down to what we wished we were, right? And so something that we had a really hard or firm understanding of, a past self, right? Well, at least I knew this is kind of like the devil in the details. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't, right? And so the Aries version of that is the devil you know is probably not as good as the angelic or spiritual or holy self that you could create, right? And so if you just let go of that past, woo, you could do some new things. That's some intense energy, right? And that's under these retrogrades, right? While we're discovering new spiritual understandings about ourselves, while we're having mystical synchronicities, while we're having this understanding of our hidden self, we're letting go of old wounds, right? And these are old societal wounds, right? How has society or culture or the history that we've been taught injured us, and how can we let that go? Right? How can we move past injury into recovery, into healing, into wholeness, into oneness kind of energy that's going on? Let's see. I had another. Oh, yeah. I was like, there's one other thing I wanted to highlight. I got like, really, I have like 6 pages of notes in front of me. There's a lot more notes than I usually keep. And I wanted to try to stay consistent about what was going on. But this nodal shift is really important. 2 things, actually, I want to mention that there is also occurring today, Monday the 17th, on this day that I'm talking about, Monday, is the cardinal cross, right? And so the cardinal cross is Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn are all in the sky in a nice cross. And so that's also governing the energy, right? And when we get these cardinal crosses, it really is this shift in new reality, right? It's finding our true north. It's finding, our new south, our east, and our west, right? Our rising and our setting. What gets us started? What do we put to bed? All those kinds of energies of north, south, east, west, you can sort of attribute to this cardinal cross. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is, if you're looking for a time in your history where this energy was kind of the same with the moon and the north and south nodes, those last times it would have been in this formation would have been 2004 to 2006, right? That's a little bit ago, right? Maybe you can remember back that. Maybe you weren't born yet. I don't know how old everybody is who's watching this, but definitely in 2004 was a transitional period for me. And this is just sort of things that are sort of monumental and you can sort of look for, right? In 2004, I was ordained into the Lutheran Church, and I took over my first congregation as an ordained minister in 2004. Right, so that's a monumental shift that I believed back in 2004, that I took on a higher or a different spiritual leadership, right? And so Aries, spiritual leadership, right? I sort of found a mystical synchronicity for myself looking backwards, right? It's usually harder to see when you're going through it, but just sort of that understanding, right? And then sort of letting go of my codependence of that I needed somebody else to authorize me, right? Before that, it wasn't my first ministry job. I was in youth ministry and I was in youth group, right? So I was always amongst spiritual people trying to do spiritual group things, right? So 2004, ordination happened for me, right? So I had this mystical experience and everything started to mystically align. And then 2006, in 2006 is when I started my doctoral program, where I got a doctorate or worked on my doctorate in ministry program, which is on congregation, mission, and leadership, right? And so I continued my education. So I went from a master's degree, a master of divinity, into this higher sort of learning where I wanted to know more details of what is this structure of groups of people that I'm working with, that I'm working for, that I'm trying to enlighten, to inspire with spiritual information and energy, right? And so that's the kind of energy and things that can happen under this, right? And then you find balance, right? as a spiritual leader, especially in congregations. If any, I don't know if any of my former colleagues watch this, but finding the balance between home life and church life, right? Do you have a personal life, or are you the service or a public figure which has no private life or very little private life from your congregation, right? So it's that idea of balance, that Libra of how do you sort of balance that, and then balance church life with secular life, right? Is there such a thing? Is there a hard line in between those things, right? And so I spent the last 20 years figuring that out. And of course, I figured that out outside of the church. So yeah, there's interesting shifts that can happen, and you should pay attention for something monumental to be happening, but it could be just a monumental understanding. It doesn't have to be an earth shattering, you know, sell your house, quit your job, leave your relationship. It could be just something of a spiritual discovery about yourself that you'll see has been hinted at all along, especially over the last 20 years, back to 2004, that was a demarcation, and now you've made a generation, right? 20 years is what we understand as a generation. You made a generational shift into the next echelon of what that is. A lot of stuff going on in the stars today. The sun's going to be the stuff you feel the most. This other stuff might feel more like angst, right? All the nodal shift, more like angst, maybe even sadness. You might even have things go away from your life, right? So this, if somebody's ill, this is a perfect time, not perfect time. This is an energetic time, which is allowing more passing away, moving on to the next realm, right? So if you have somebody sick or on the edge of sickness, you know, that might be something to sort of pay attention to, not to look forward to or expect, because we don't want to do that. But when these transitions happen, sometimes a lot of pet loss will happen during this, right? You've had a good friend for a while, and so this pet's gone away, and you have to be a new person past that pet. And that's the kind of energy that, you know, you should expect for the North Node. I think that's everything that's happening on Monday. We'll see you again next week on Wednesday. If all of this energy is messing with you and you want to come to the shop and you live in the Brenham area, newdimensionscrystals.com, you can book your session. We can do any one of the 3 sessions to sort of help you adjust to this energy. And of course, those sessions aren't just energy on the table. Those are conversations with me about how is this energy affecting you? How can you look at this energy for you and how it's affecting your life? And then sort of higher perspectives to see how you sort of integrate that into a new way forward, a new understanding of the self. Those are the kinds of things that I offer here. And then of course, breath work, right? If you just want to just breathe in more spiritual energy, more of this cosmic energy that's happening in the thing, breath work will also do those shifts. And I have one-on-one breath work sessions that you can book online too at newdimensionscrystals.com. Now that's all I've got to say. Until next week, everybody, many blessings.